I just wanted to talk about it a little bit further with both yourself and Ross, because it's been made public now that it's going to go from 9.7, the soft cap spend, down to 6.7 million. So that's a $3 million cut that needs to be made at all AFL clubs. And Ed, this is just one club. There's the figures there down there, but I just wanted to look at one club. And, this is the roles they've got, 23 roles on game day. So you go through them, senior coach, some of the names, stoppages, opposition, performance analysts, sports science, which we need. We don't need all of those, though, and there's some of the cuts that are going to have to be made, Ross. And I wanted to talk to you about when you first started your coaching career to what you ended up and how things changed over that time.
Well, debuted in 07 as a senior coach, and it's chalk and cheese. From 07 to 19, the numbers are basically doubled and tripled within, not even Monday to Friday, within the coach's box. If you have a quick look here, so that was St Kilda and how I finished at the Dockers. And really, I don't want to be flippant here because we're talking about people's livelihoods, and I know Gillen always, he wants all the money to go to the players really, and concerned about the arms race in the football department and what's wrapped around. So I think there's quite, I don't want to say simple, but there's room to move within football department spend and match day. And it was more enjoyable for me. I enjoyed the simplicity.
Just before we go, I want to ask you about the simplicity of coaching. Do you think part of the problem has been the rules that have been brought in? I mean, you've got to have somebody there counting interchanges. You've got to have somebody doing this and that. There's all sorts of different things that have come in, and player welfare has become far bigger an issue than it was when, you used to, train twice or three times a week, go to the pub on a Sunday night and turn up the next day.
Well, you're spot on. There's lots of rationale behind it, and no more than player retention. If you're an interstate club and your kids are from Victoria and your first round picks, you're going to do everything you can to retain them because it's set up that you only get them for 2 years. Maybe if they extend out the initial drafting contract, less pressure to wrap everything around them to make sure they don't leave. There's plenty of challenges in it for clubs.
Ross, do you think we'll find that coaches who do survive the cuts, and it's $3 million in cuts, have to do dual roles? So you might be a line coach, but you also can do strategy. You're a line coach, you also do development. Is that what they'll have to do, dual roles to survive?
No doubt. When I was midfield coach at the Swans, and there was no two midfield coaches. It was do stoppages, do transition, do preparation of opposition, and really no days off during the week. But you loved it and you wanted to win a flag. And I think your development coaches will take over welfare and well-being roles as well because they're genuine care and interest. I just want to share the anecdote. International rules, I think in 2017, Chris Scott, head coach, I was an assistant, and Brad Scott was the other assistant. We sat in the box. It was us three and one IT guy that Chris brought from Geelong that did the edits. And we all commented how much we enjoyed it, and wouldn't it be great to take this model to an AFL level because there was really high trust. You knew everyone you were working with, and I've worked with great people, but that level, that calibre of person around you just made it felt easier and it felt really efficient and productive.
Eddie, do you think it'll be like going back to what it was in Ross's first year for the players, where they'll have to be as diligent as ever before? They won't be as pampered. Players are harder than ever before, but they won't be as pampered, and you will get back to less staff. So you've got to do more for yourself in that sense by next year?
Look, we probably, in a lot of ways, started at Collingwood in the early 2000s where, we looked at the teaching method, and that was the more coaches you had per student, if you like, but as far as a ratio, the better it would be. And it worked for us because we climbed up the ladder, and Mick Malthouse was over the top of it and did a fantastic job. I think, look, the economics are going to just show this. I mean, the reason why the cuts have come so severe at the clubs already is because the banks will want to see before they give the money to keep the game going. I keep going back to the same thing every segment on this show because there's all this stuff going on around. It comes down to the dollars at the moment. Look, I'm old enough to remember and actually of knowing when Race Luck Jordan used to be the under-19s coach, the reserves coach, and be the assistant coach of the senior team and do that. So I don't know whether we need to change the whole lot as we go. What's the role of the VFL? What's the under-18 competition look like? Because to Ross's point, if you've got a development coach and he's coaching the under-18s and maybe even the reserves, and it's a 52-week of the year game just about these days when you put the women's competition in there, well, the days of having individual coaching fraternities at under-18 level, at reserves level, at women's level, at senior level, I mean, it's just going to come in. The glory days of everyone getting a drink are gone. That's where it is. So we have to have a good look at how we recalibrate the entire competition.
And the irony is, the more stuff being put on, the players are have less contact hours than they ever had. So it's counterintuitive.
We'll chuck up a photo here. I actually called for Tommy Hafey sitting next to Ronnie Richards. That's the box in 1977 grand final. And as you can see there, that was a full box in those days with Barras there and Johnny Dugdale alongside him. And, there's a bloke who's got the footy record next to him and there's a couple of blokes behind him there. And if you actually saw next door, the coach's box in the 77 grand final had Tommy Hafey with his T-shirt and the phone on his lap, literally, and picking up, talking straight to the runner, who was his brother, Peter Hafey, and the chairman of selectors and assistant coach was Ronnie Richards. That was the Collingwood Brains Trust for the 77 grand final.
Well,
Wasn't a bad game either.
It was a great game, and we got to replay it as well.
Yeah.
But it really was. The coach had the full reins. Like Dennis Pagan had the full reins. My early days, Paul Roos had the full reins. Mick Moldhouse had the full reins. But it's really become a coaching panel delegation. But behind that, Alistair Clarkson and Chris Scott are still analysing the game as if they're the only one doing it and then can working with their coaches because they could handle it.
The only thing, Lloyd, we're not going back to Slug Jordan doing all those jobs, okay? And it'd be ridiculous because it's as simple as this. It is a full-time job. You can't bring 45 young men into your club, not counting the women's when we get to them. We'll just stick with the men's for the moment. Every day of the week and have doctors, drug testing. So it's a simpler time back in those days. Now, every day you have to test for drugs. You have to test for all these different things that are going on. You've got your fitness. You've got... It's just a myriad of things. Now, maybe we do go back to a simpler time and we cut a few of these things out. But you can never go back to the old days so far. There has to be a certain amount of people on the ground to be able to do it these days. The national competition, you've got to have recruiters going right around the country.